saw him that day. He was walking by the taro patch. But at dinner time, I was waiting for him. But he never came back.
I wish he had said something to me. We could have talked about what was bothering him.
I can't believe this. He's so young.
He was going to give me some coconuts, but he never gave them.
I'm just shocked. That was so stupid of him. What a waste.
Hey, isn't that the plane taking off?
Yeah. And Johnny was supposed to leave to school today.
Yeah, he had a very bright future. What was he thinking?
Dad, may I use the car?
No, Johnny. I need to use the car for Suk tonight.
Oh, Dad, please. I'll just go check out my friends and come back.
I have to use the car for Suk tonight.
Oh, Dad, please. I'll just go check out my friends and come back.
No, Johnny!
I've never heard of groups going around talking about suicide. I hear groups talking about sexually transmitted diseases, public health, diabetes, but this is not an issue they don't talk about. And yet, every month somebody's doing it.
Suicide is a sad fact in most Micronesian communities today. Between 1960 and 1999, over 1,000 Micronesians have taken their own lives. Over 650 from FSM, 270 Marshallese, 120 Palauans. No single cemetery on any of the islands is big enough to contain the graves of all these victims. So many needlessly shortened lives. So many youths who never reach adulthood. Most of the victims are young.
In Micronesia, it tends to be the young men.
Between the age of, I guess, 15 to 40 years old.
Nearly 3/4 of the victims were between 15 and 30 when they committed suicide. But there are even younger victims, 13 years old, 12 years old, even a few 9-year-olds. Suicide is a problem of the youth, one that touches mere children. The overwhelming majority of those who take their own lives are males. Only 1 out of every 15 victims is a woman. Suicide represents a tragic loss of life. Political leaders are fond of reminding us that our greatest resource is our young people. If that's true, then suicide is a very serious problem, for it is a main cause of death among youth.
Once there was a woman who had 2 sons. Each day before they went off swimming, she would give each one his own dish of food. The younger son, who was her favorite, always got the choice food, while the older boy received food ground from the peels of the plant. One day, as they were eating, the 2 brothers exchanged dishes. The older brother was surprised that his brother's food tasted so much better. So, my mother is giving my younger brother the good food, the boy thought. He walked off in tears to the other side of the island where the tropic birds nested. The birds took pity on the boy and gave him some of their feathers. Then the boy flew off, never to be seen again.
Yeah, there was a 17-year-old boy. First, he had a sugar plantation. So he pulled up one and offered to his uncles. And his father was really mad. So he went ahead and hung himself.
Second example was another boy who also committed suicide because of anger. He was angry because he wanted to go and ask for marriage, and the boy is about 19 years old. So for that reason, because they don't give him the permission to go and ask for his marriage, he decided to commit suicide.
He has a brother, a younger brother, and he thought the mother favors the younger brother than him.
He could not really give out what's his hurts are, what's inside him, what he wants. He got mad at his mother, and then he just committed suicide.
Another one, very young, sophomore. He went to high school, got drunk, got arrested, and along the road to the house, he hid and committed suicide just so that he doesn't meet the father.
In some cases, it's so little, so minor.
Apparently was on a phone conversation and somebody hung up the phone on them.
He was drinking the previous night and he got into a fight with his older brother.
Some people ask for money and were not given money.
The person was angry at his father for not allowing him to get a bicycle or something.
He was angry, took the car, went out, wrecked it, came back and then took his own life.
She got upset at her sister.
He didn't get what she wanted to get.
He was reported to the principal.
I think he got a bad grade in school.
Brother scolded him.
He was apparently very angry at his family.
He had a fallout with the parents.
He wanted to marry a girl.
She was mad on the parents too.
That's the common cases where they want to ask for their something, whether it's money or marriage, and something like that. And if the parents don't give, then they commit suicide.
But anger is not the only emotion at play in suicides.
Another reason is embarrassment, right? Like I heard about one situation where, a girl got pregnant and she was really embarrassed to tell her parents.
In the FSM, in the Micronesia, we got small communities. Everybody knows each other. I mean, you try your best to hide that maybe your wife was committing adultery. The whole community will know, and you can imagine
But this is nothing new. People have always been getting offended. Perhaps there is something typically Micronesian about suicide as a response.
I believe that suicide is not new to Micronesian society. You hear it told in songs, in stories.
There is some truth in this assertion. We know that suicides did occur in the past.
Like people would get up, go on a voyage, and decided not to go to their destination, and just goes and disappeared.
There are stories of men paddling out to sea, like the boy who flew off, never to return again. Now and then, there might be a flare-up of suicide. On Ponape in the 1850s, after the smallpox epidemic had ravaged the island and caused a great social upheaval. On Chuuk in the 1890s, as trade was growing and the first real effects of a new way of life were being felt. Yet during the Japanese administration, during the 1920s and 1930s, no more than 3 or 4 suicides a year were reported for all of Micronesia. Even after World War II, there seemed to be very few suicides. Until the late 1960s. From 1965 to 1969, FSM had 12 suicides. The Marshalls had 6 and Palau 8 during those same years. From that time on, the number of suicides grew rapidly.
In most documentation, it's during the 60s and after the 60s that we see this trend of suicide rising in Micronesia.
In the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, and especially in 80s and 90s, wow.
Kashrai, with its tiny population of 8,000, has as many suicides each year nowadays as all the states of FSM combined had 40 years ago. The suicide rate in Micronesia rose steadily from the late 1960s to 1980. From that time on, it has remained high. The present rate of over 25 suicides per 100,000 people is one of the highest in the world. It is twice the rate of the U.S. and higher than any other island group in the Pacific. Why this sudden increase in suicide?
The young people get lost, they don't know, what should I do in this world? In the traditional Micronesian society, it's easy to find something to do, to find your identity. But in a changing society, it's pretty hard.
They feel that they're not loved, especially when you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol here.
Taking alcohol is maybe giving them some courage.
You cannot rule out alcohol, but maybe as one factor, yes.
Alcohol does loosen inhibitions. It is certainly one of the contributing factors, but there are others as well. Suicides often happen in clusters.
If there's a suicide today, they tend to have another one next week. It's like a season for suicide.
It's the copycat effect. Other people get caught on with it. And they just get mad and say, oh, that guy did it. Why shouldn't I do it? I will follow that guy.
A few years ago, an island with only 700 people reported 5 suicides within just a few months. The increase in suicide seems to feed on itself like an epidemic.
I think that's where a lot of kids today are always, when they hear of it so much, they see it as it becomes so common to them, suicide. It doesn't seem so scary to them. They see it as a joke, they see it as just another word, they see it just as an everyday happening. But they don't realize that sooner or later, they'll be faced with the same situation. And it seems like such an easy option for them.
Suicide in Micronesia today has become a deadly epidemic, with one death leading to another. If so many young people had died of any other cause, the islands would have been declared a disaster area and a national campaign begun to combat the problem.
This is an emotional thing.
Then let's look for a moment at the emotions running through the young person who takes his own life.
You know, they keep things inside them and then it just explodes and they attempted suicide or they commit suicide.
They have no way of expressing their anger.
Like if they scold them for doing something and they cannot talk back and explain.
For Americans or Europeans, it's acceptable to be an individual, right? You can talk back, right? You can express your ideas, you can express what you're feeling. For a lot of Micronesians, that's not possible.
Unable to voice their anger directly, they punish their families by taking their own lives.
I think they're trying to take revenge or something like that, saying that the parents are not really care or love them.
To take revenge or to punish the family because you don't do this for me, I might as well die. See if you're gonna see me again tomorrow. In fact, they say that out.
Maybe they just want to hit back at the parents, want to make them feel bad.
Sometimes they said, oh, you don't give me that? Okay, see which son are you going to have? I'm going.
Well, they killed themselves because they didn't get a car. They killed themselves because they got too drunk and just got beaten up by the father, and you know, as a way of showing their anger, they take it on themselves. It's quite shocking how young kids turn to that option so fast.
Yet there are subtle emotions at play as well. Victims often feel sad and hurt.
So it's like feeling sorry for oneself and then feeling that it's the only way to get out of the situation they have without, you know, having to scream or to hate. You cannot hate, you cannot shout, you cannot, you know, be disrespectful to your parents and to your elders.
And if you tell them something that they did wrong or disagree with them, then they will be very upset and they will not show right away.
The ones we do not expect them to commit suicide because they were the ones who behaved the most, who did the work, who never answered back to the family, who respect, who's always there for you. Those are the ones we tend to lose them.
Sometimes I just don't understand why. You know, I used to wonder why me? I'm not the only one doing that, it's some of us. And yet, I'll be picked among them to get scolded or to be spanked. And sometimes I just walk away from home. Just went there and cry. You know, sometimes I'll just cry.
Are young people today hurt more by their families than their parents or grandparents were years ago? Is there more tension in the family today than there used to be? Or did people in the past just handle this tension better?
I think maybe perhaps not all people, but most of the people grew up and at one time or another encounter a situation where they think about taking their life.
One time in my life, I disobeyed my father. And when I came home, my father found out about what I did. We went climbed a cliff. And I was not supposed to climb the cliff because that's a dangerous task. Well, anyway, my father was really upset. And he was going looking for the rod to really discipline me. And then I ran away. And it was about 5 o'clock in the evening. And I was so scared. And I wasn't going to go back home because I know my father was there waiting for me with this whip. But what was going on in my mind, I was thinking of, oh, my uncle who is about 7 miles down from Soques, maybe that's where I should go. I was thinking about people that can save me. my grandfather, my uncle, both on my mother and my father's side. They were, relatives that I knew I could seek refuge when I'm, in a desperate situation like that.
When I found out that I failed the entrance test, I cried and I was scared to go home. I felt so bad that I thought of just taking my life. There was no reason for living. I was so scared of my parents that instead of going to my parents' home, I went to my grandparents' home. And my grandmother has been always a figurehead in my growing up. And when she saw me, she knew that something was wrong. And she asked me what was wrong, and I started crying. And she confirmed my belief that there are options.
I decided, okay, I'm going to go and end my life, but it's happened that my very favorite auntie found out, and she go after me and took me to her house and talked to me and divert my thinking.
I cried. That's what I do most of the time, especially with parents. There's nothing I could do but just cry.
I was really at the end of my rope, but day and night I just cry and cry. And interestingly enough, crying myself to sleep helped. I overcame the problem I had.
Young men have always had painful moments in their families. Each one of those individuals might have ended his life, but they found other sorts of relief. Some found comfort in a close relative. Others needed time alone to cry or to work out the problem.
It seems that suicide doesn't happen in the past that often. But today it seems to be happening more frequently.
What has changed? Why don't the defenses against suicide work as well today as they once did?
I think the reason that it's happening today more frequently is because of, the breaking down in the extended family.
The gradual breakdown of the family institution.
As I can see, no more place for kids to go and release their tension, whereas before they usually go to uncles or something like that, somebody whom they trust to go and release their tensions and anger to them.
With families breaking down, it becomes kind of difficult for the children to vent off their feelings when they are frustrated and disappointed, because then we're beginning to be in one single family and not exposing our children to extended family.
Maybe the offended young man feels that he has no one in the family to run to. Perhaps the relatives who would have stepped in to help in the past aren't in a position to do so any longer.
Because, with an extended family, you have that support, that unit, that family support. But with a nuclear family, you have less support.
What then can we do to make up for what we lack?
We have to change because time and way of life has changed.
Yes, time is very important. And conversation also is the backbone of the family.
With fewer adults in the house, parents may need to spend more time with their children.
It's very hard for us to say. We're not used to really open up ourselves to somebody. Why should I let you know what's deep inside me? So I just think family should learn more about communicating with each other.
Because we don't talk in the culture. If only we could talk, say things, then there would be understanding, and then we don't have to go to that drastic end.
I think there are some children now who just long to see the parents, to listen to them. I think it would help if the parents really show their love through listening to their children.
Also, be close with our own children. observe them well and see how they're doing, and not just observing and let them go. Because that's how you find out about their problems and how they're feeling.
Times have changed, and so have the rules of parenting. When there were aunts and uncles around, they could explain a lot of what parents left unsaid. But today, parents are the last line of defense. It's up to them to explain to their children why they must refuse a request or punish them.
I tell you, most parents today I know of, they are afraid of disciplining their children because they might go and kill themselves. And I think it's wrong.
My own children, I will call them and talk to them straight.
And sometimes when me and my son get into an argument, it's not an argument, it's more like talk. You know, I'm trying to understand him and he's trying to understand me, and we agree. We never walk away disagreeing with each other, because when you walk away disagreeing with each other, something's bound to go wrong again.
But the tendency is because of the macho, you know, I am the head of the family, I am the boss. Yeah. When I say it and what I say, it must be done. Yeah. This is the problem that most, especially fathers, have today.
And be firm, but yet make sure that they understand why you tell them they don't do that, why it's bad.
You know, whenever I don't understand them, I say, okay, let's get together. What is bothering you?
I would just like us both young and old to try to understand one another, respect the views or the feelings of each other.
Many small families today feel the need for help in bringing up their children. They're trying to put their children in touch with other relatives so their children can find help when they need it.
If you feel so hungry, if you feel so bad, seek counsel. Yeah. An older brother, an older sister, a friend.
Some might call a friend right away and talk to say, hey, I'm thinking about it, and you know, you agree with a friend that if that thought ever comes to you, I'll call you. And if that thought ever comes to you, you call me. And I'm your switch. I'll talk you out of it and you talk me out of it, and we promise to each other.
I think if they would understand that they could go to another person, another member of the family, instead of just getting stuck with the father. If the father say no, they stop there.
Well, in the culture, you can always go to your grandparents, your aunties, your uncles, the ones you're closer to. Then you can talk. You tell them, and then they make you feel better. They comfort you, or they talk to you. You can talk about it, and it helps.
And when all the doors are closed, know that there is always a way out. No matter even if you cannot see the door, there is still a way to get out, because you did get in. And when you got in, there surely is another way out. You just have to find it.
Because in our society, you attend so many funerals. And every time I go to a person who committed suicide, you know, you listen to why he did it. It's such a shame, because if he could get out of that box he's in now, he'd probably say, why did I do this? You know, why? I mean, for what? You know, look at me now, I'm gone forever. You know, it's just, I can almost see the frustration in the guy's face, and then the person is probably lying in that box saying, what a stupid thing I did, you know, so stupid.
Suicide, a permanent answer to a temporary problem. An answer that brings misery to the victim's family and a definitive end for the victim.
And to think of them as someone who has a potential to be a very good leader, a good leader in the future, or someone that can help other people in the future. And it's just like, it's a waste of life or a waste of talent to really strive for something, and then because you just have this one problem, then you decide to end your life.
What is that guy laying in there thinking right now? For a moment of stupidity landed him forever in that box.
The dark clouds in a person's life pass in time. Hope is restored. There are many people who have waited out their problems and are still with us today. Imagine what our islands would be like without these men and women.
Sometimes we say, let's educate the kids that it's wrong, that they miss out when they do that. But I would say they're tired of hearing that. It's not about talking to them about how bad suicide is. It's about giving them something good that they can do. Trying to create opportunities for kids to be creative, to use their talents, multiple talents, not just in school.
The kids have to believe and know that you love them.